Today we are gathered to celebrate the graduation of the Senior Leader Course, Class 24-003. For the past 3 weeks, these NCOs have put into practice leadership skills such as counseling, mentoring, Army writing, critical thinking, and problem solving to give them a critical educational foundation they will need to serve as senior leaders in our nation's National Guard recruiting and retention battalions. The guest speaker for today's ceremony is Sergeant Major Harold Murdock. Sergeant Major Harold Murdock was born in Baltimore, Maryland. He enlisted into the Maryland Army National Guard in June 2001. After basic combat training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, he attended advanced individual training at Fort Lee, Virginia, now Fort Gregg Adams, to attain the military occupational specialty of 92 Mike, Mortuary Affairs Specialist. Throughout his military career, he would attain the MOSs of a 31 Bravo, military police officer, 11 Bravo, infantryman, and 92 Alpha, logistics. Sergeant Major Murdock has supported 3 mobilizations, one to Camp Bondsteel, Kosovo, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in 2006 to 2007, and 2 to Camp Arif John, Kuwait, Task Force Spartan, between 2016 and 2017, in addition to 2021 and 2022. Sergeant Major Murdock won NCO of the Year for his company, battalion, and division in 2009. He has conducted over 500 military funeral honors as a Maryland Army National Guardsman, Honor Guardsman, to include former governors and veterans from every branch of service. Sergeant Major Murdock served as the NGB Medical Administration NCOIC/trainer for G1 HRP-P between 2018 to 2021. Upon return from his last mobilization, he served as the executive assistant for the NGB G357. He has currently been serving on Title 10 Active Duty Operational Support orders with the Strength Readiness Support Center, since April of 2023. For his M-Day assignment, he serves as a Supply and Services NCOIC with Division Detachment, Bravo Company, 29th Infantry Division. On the civilian side, Sergeant Major Murdock served as a law enforcement officer with the Maryland Transportation Authority Police Department from 2005 to 2012. He left services with the police department to work with the Maryland Military Department of Veterans Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Major Harold Murdock.
Good morning. Good morning, Colonel Cherry. Sir, I don't know your name, but I didn't have you on my list here. But to Lieutenant Colonel, the cadre, First Sergeant Blanton, and the graduating class, SLC 79 Tango. I am humbled and honored to have the opportunity to share some of our experience and thoughts with you all today and hope that it will help you in your careers moving forward. I want to share 3 topics with you today. One being standards, the second, recruiting, and the third, leadership. Recruiting, which I know the least about, but I have some pretty cool stories that I think is cool stories at least that I want to share with you. First, standards. A quote I would like to share with you. The character of a team is reflected in the standards that they set for themselves. Better yet put, the qualities of a leader is reflected in the standards that they set for themselves. So the question would be, what is a standard, since we know words have meanings? A standard, as defined by the American Standard Dictionary, is a written definition, limit, or rule approved or monitored for compliance by an authoritative agency, professional, or recognized body as a minimal acceptable benchmark. The Army has made it simple for us. Our standards are derived from laws and regulations, and as long as those laws and regulations aren't deemed as unmoral, unethical, or illegal, we are to adhere to them and enforce them. But here's the deal. Simple, remember words have meaning. Simple isn't always easy. Easy is defined as without effort. Simple is defined as without complication. It is our duties as leaders to keep things simple and through our repetition and our actions to make them look easy. Now to recruiting, and my funny story about recruiting. One thing I know, I have limited experience with recruiting as it pertains to the Army. I did some civilian sales training and I did some recruiting outside of the military. So what I did learn through that is the lifeblood of any organization is through recruiting and prospecting. So I want to share a story about when I was younger. I was 20 years old, newly in the military. I was living in an apartment in Baltimore, Maryland, Lakewood Apartments. My battle buddy at the time, who we worked on force protection, we both were next door neighbors. One thing I know, and mind you, I'm 20 years old, so I want to put the caveat on there. My mindset was different than it is now. But one thing I saw my battle buddy every weekend, he would be out on a date with a different lady every weekend. I was always curious by this because I wasn't on any dates with anybody. So I would go up to my battle buddy, I would ask him a question. I would say, hey, what are you saying? What are you saying to these ladies that make you go on a date with a different woman? Now, mind you, my battle buddy was short in stature, wasn't very good looking, if I could say that for the least, but he would always have somebody with him. He says, Doc, my name's Murdock, he just called me Doc. He says, Doc, I'm not saying anything special. I'm just talking to people. I said, but no, what are you saying? He says, let me give you an example. He says, on an average day, shallow as it may seem, but on an average day, he says, I would talk to about 10 ladies a day. He said, out of the 10 ladies, if I'm lucky, I would get about 3 numbers. Now, I want to put things in perspective for you. If I took a test today, a 10-question test, and I got 3 answers right out of 10 questions, I would get a 30%, right? That's probably about the score of my ASVAB score when I came into the military. So it wasn't very good. However, if I play in a Major League Baseball and I hit the ball 3 times out of 10, I'm batting at 300%. So I'm a millionaire and I'm a stud in baseball. So everything's about perspective when you look at it. Well, back to the story, he would get about 3 numbers a day, and he would do this 7 days a week. That's 21 numbers at the end of the week. So at the end of the week, he would have 21 numbers that he can reach out to and call to see if he can get a date. What I learned from that later on when I went to sales training through a John Maxwell course of leadership, he wrote a book called 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he talked about the laws of averages and the law of large numbers. And what I learned by that, in that instance with my buddy, like I said, I won't say his name because he's still serving in the military. I don't want anybody to criticize him. But what I learned by that, what he said to me that day, he says, the reason you don't have anybody to go out on a date with is because you don't open your mouth. Closed mouths don't get fed. You guys are senior leaders going back to your recruiting battalions, agencies, whatever one it is, and some of you might be going to different things. But if you are going back to your recruiters, tell them to open their mouth and speak, right? I have a mentor who said this to me before. Before you can be great, you have to be good. And before you can be good, you have to be bad. And before you have to be bad, you have to do something. So I encourage you to get your troops to start doing something. One thing I know, just getting prepared to speak to you this morning, right? I looked up the numbers and I talked to Sergeant Furman this morning and I talked to some other people. Last year, we set a standard, the Army and the National Guard, to hit recruiting goals. Last year, even though the National Guard came up to 96%, which is pretty good, it still didn't meet the standard. And anything we set as a standard, anything below that is a substandard, right? So we want to put ourselves in the position to meet the standards. I truly believe that looking at you all today, that we are the standards. And when we go out in front of people, we represent the Army. They put us out in front of it. Everyone here, no one here was drafted that I believe. We all voluntarily came through a recruiter in some form or fashion, right? My last thing I would like to talk to you about, excuse me, is leadership. Definitions. FM 6-22. Army leadership is defined as the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and improve the organization, right? I will share another story, but this is not a personal story. This is a story that I read and I found quite impressive. It's by an author named Colin Emerson, the principal at Foundation Road, Leadership, and Organizational Development. He goes and says this: would you expect a car worth $4,000 to be the same quality as a car worth $80,000? In all likelihood, you would expect a better quality of paint and finish, a better engine, comfort and ride, and no smoke pouring out of the exhaust. And the $80,000 car, that is. The more that is invested, the higher the expectation and the quality of the outcome. In some ways, leadership is much the same. The investment, though, is not necessarily in the dollars paid. No, the investment is the one that the leader makes in order to that they drive the success of the organization, not by direction, but by example. It is the standard that the true leader established for themselves, the guiding principles that are reflected in what they do, how they treat and respect people, how they respect themselves, and the value of time, ideas, and individual worth, that the investment that determines the quality of the organization. Because it is an example that inspires those around them, those who work with them, and those that want to work with them to be like them in some way. Conversely, a leader, and I use this term in a very loose sense in this case, who has invested little in the quality of standards that they set for themselves, inspires few to be just like them. A master of leadership is someone who, by their actions, are driven by the highest of standards and respect by the quality of the service and give others to their organization. The quality of a leader is reflected in the standards that they set for themselves. True indeed. I'll leave you with this. We all been in the military long enough to experience both great leadership and not so great leadership, substandard leadership. What I want to encourage you here today is to become a better leader. Not only a better leader to yourself, for yourself, but for the ones who you serve with. Make the investment, because the return on the investment will not only benefit you, will benefit the people for the greater good. With that being said, I again would like to congratulate the Class 79 Tango SLC for your success, and I wish you continued success in all your endeavors. God bless.
Sergeant Major Murdock, thank you for your time and the wisdom that you shared with our class today.